Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back here on this Friday morning, and we are going to preview game number 3 for the Nebraska Cornhuskers against the Houston Christian Huskies on Saturday. We're going to offer up some bold predictions, get to know the Huskies a little bit, talk about some recruiting tidbits, some flips that the Huskers are trying to pull off here in the 2026 class. And before we get into it, please make sure that you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section. And Danny, how are you on this Friday morning?
I'm doing well. Before game day, the last final tune-up game before the Michigan game. I know many fans are looking, forward to that. So I'm excited to see what they have in store for this Saturday.
Yeah, it will be the final tune-up game, as you mentioned. We got FCS opponent Houston Christian. They are from the Southland Conference. They are 1-1 on this season. They notched a win over Arkansas Baptist. It was a blowout. I don't even remember what the final score was, but they dominated that game. They lost last week to Eastern Kentucky, 20-10. They had 4 turnovers offensively, which kind of hurt them. But this is an impressive team. Matt Rule said earlier this week that Houston Christian's got some excellent players, and they are kind of a building an up and coming program in the FCS. They did get a top 25 win last year. They beat McNeese State, and there are some interesting stats. Like one about this Houston Christian team. They actually lead college football, at least the FCS, but probably would lead the FBS too in third down conversions. Their defense has faced 32 this year. They've only allowed 1. So teams are 1 of 32 on third down conversions so far this season against Houston Christian. So that's going to be, a fun challenge to watch. With Nebraska's been excellent on third down. Dylan Raiola has been excellent on third down, but facing a defense that has only given up 1 third down conversion so far this year. So I do think there are some fun challenges in this matchup. You look at Houston Christian, they have a very good run game. They do a lot of inside zone split read, a split zone. They do a lot of things that Cincinnati did in their running game against us in week 1. So I do think that this will be a good barometer for the run defense and for Nebraska's offense to see if they can continue to score at the level that they did last week against Akron.
Yeah, I do think there will be some fun challenges. You said it best when facing this Houston Christian team. I mean, they do have some playmakers, and it starts at quarterback with Jake Weir. I mean, he's thrown for only 295 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season, but he can get the ball out. He has a 52.5% completion percentage, which isn't the best, but I mean, he does have some playmakers around him. I mean, their running back Edwards, has 200 rushing yards on the season, and only 80 receiving yards for their leading receiver to Marcus Gray, but they can put drives together, and they showed that early this season, as you mentioned. So there will be some fun challenges, and Nori Johnson on the defensive side is a guy to watch. 11 tackles on the season, so they do have some playmakers. I do think this isn't necessarily going to be a cakewalk for Nebraska, but it will be fun to see how Houston Christian tries to combat the Huskers' attack, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, Jake Weir, you mentioned him. He transferred from Mississippi State. Not great passing numbers, but this is more of a run-based offense. And so you look at the first 2 weeks, they have 492 rushing yards, so about 250 per game. As opposed to their opponents, I guess, taking out sacks. So they've got 443 rushing yards per game. Their opponents only 137 rushing yards, and opponents are only getting 2 yards per attempt. They're getting 5 yards per attempt. So that's 220 yards per game for Houston Christian, 68 rushing yards against. So that I think will be interesting on both the offensive line for Nebraska to see what kind of push that they can get against Houston Christian. I mean, they should be able to dominate, I would think, up front, but can they limit this rushing attack of 221 rushing yards per game? As you mentioned, Ashawn Edwards, he's been very dynamic for them. 7.4 yards per carry, a long of 60 yards, 4 touchdowns. So I would think that's how they're going to try to attack this. Run the football. Try to get the clock moving. Try to make the game a little bit quicker. Try to keep the ball out of Dylan Raiola's hands as much as possible, and try to take care of the ball. That's one thing they didn't do last week. They also, Houston Christian they've only got 2 sacks through 2 games. So honestly, this should be a game where for Dylan Raiola, I think it could be very similar to last week. Maybe not 364 yards and 4 touchdowns, but I would expect Dylan Raiola to exceed the century mark again, or the 300-yard mark once again this week, as he, was already kind of making a push for the Nebraska passing record through a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he looked really good last week. Probably the best I've seen him in his Nebraska career so far. He was sharp. He got the ball out quick. He looked comfortable, throwing the football, and he probably could have gone for at least 400 yards had he stayed in the entire game. But he looked really good, really comfortable, and really decisive. So I'm excited to see if he can follow that up again as he continues to get more comfortable with this offense.
Yeah, and I noticed with the depth chart, which we haven't talked about on this show yet. We didn't have our episode earlier this week, so apologies for that. But with the depth chart, I thought it was notable, at least on the offensive line. When you look at that left tackle position, there's no longer an or there at either tackle spot. It's not Gunnar Gatula or Turner Corcoran or Elijah Pritchett. It's just Gunnar Gatula. And if you look at the right side, it's just Teddy Prohaska. So I do think we'll see some of those other guys play, but in terms of who the starting left tackle is, there's no debate about who that is anymore. It's Gunnar Gatula. We're going to see Turner Corcoran as that extra tight end. And for right now, Elijah Pritchett, I think, is just in the doghouse, kind of waiting for his next opportunity.
Yeah, and Gatula played well both in run and pass blocking last week, and he's played well over the first 2 games here, and even honestly last year. So he's definitely earned that spot. And then Prohaska too has played at a high level. So I'm glad to see that the offensive line is starting to get sorted out.
Another thing that just kind of came to me too, Donovan Jones. We talked. There's with black shirts. He got a black shirt this week, which was good to see. The in-state native, and really has played very well. And he could be, I view him as a starting caliber player. And usually your third corner is, plays enough to be, kind of viewed as a starter. So it was good to see that. Those guys are going to be tested, but I think especially the defensive line is going to be tested. And Riley Van Poppel, Elijah Judy, Kate Petrizak. We'll see how much he plays this week. Williams Noweri, but I do want to see these guys, stiffen up against the run. They still, it was easy to overlook it with the 68-0 win last week, but there was still probably too many rushing yards to Akron. So I would really like to see this team kind of buckle down and hold Houston Christian to, like 3 yards a carry. I really want to see them stonewall these guys against the run. And that's probably, my number one objective kind of going into this game. And that's what I want to see out of Nebraska on Saturday. I want to see a win, but, win, I'm not going to say it's guaranteed, but it pretty much feels guaranteed. So I'm going into this matchup, like, how's our run defense going to look? How are we going to run the ball against these guys? And, can this offense continue that momentum? Because I would love to see them score, another 50, 60 points going into Michigan next week.
Yeah, and I think holding the Houston Christian rushing attack to under 3 yards a carry is certainly a good goal. Like you said, the run defense is still a little bit leaky, but it's not overly concerning, because I think as long as they do their work in pass defense and trying to get a little bit more pressure, then I'll take that. Obviously, when you play some of these Big Ten teams, run defense is going to be a little bit more important. But I think, we saw improvements from Cincinnati to Akron, just this past week. So I think they'll continue to improve as the season goes on.
Yeah. And this, this I think will be, a good test for Nebraska. Not like a strong test, but I think there are some things about this matchup that will test them, going into next week, which will be a positive thing. Hopefully we can, see more pass rush. It is difficult when, teams are trying to kind of run the ball against you, and, you're playing a veteran quarterback, which are again this week, I guess I would say, in Jake Weir, somebody who's kind of well-traveled, but it would be nice to see some more pressure. And just, I'm going to be watching, that defensive line to see, their chance for, improvement again this week. But yeah, I mean, really defensively, I feel like this is a game where the Black Shirts shouldn't give up a touchdown. They didn't give up one to Akron. I'm not gonna sit here and say that they should shut out every opponent. I think that's very difficult to do, but I do think a goal of keeping Houston Christian out of the end zone seems very realistic. This is an offense that can run the football, but passing wise, I mean, Nebraska held Akron to 2.5 yards per attempt. I mean, they held Brandon Sorsby in Cincinnati to under 100 yards passing. So I mean, their first 2 opponents, they have been exceptional in pass defense, and I don't think that's going to change in this matchup. I really have a hard time seeing Houston Christian throw for over 100 yards. So, with that in mind, I mean, they probably will get some rushing yards, but I just don't see them getting into the end zone against Nebraska's very stingy, pass defense.
Yeah, and they did really well last week, and they've done really well. Honestly, the first 2 weeks, the secondary has, and Donovan Jones, Andrew Marshall, and like we said before, the secondary lacked depth last season, and that's certainly not the case this year. So I'm excited to see how they continue to grow and develop.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see some of these other, running backs. Obviously, again this week, Mekhi Nelson, Isaiah Mosey, Quentin Ives, to see how that rolls out, and I'm how that rotation kind of breaks before the season. Also hoping to see more TJ Lateef this week. I think that would be a good thing, but mostly I want to see this team have the same mindset and the same, mentality that they had in the second half against Akron. Even I didn't think they played poorly in the first half. Matt Rule wanted to see a higher standard, but I want them to continue that standard this week. And, let's not have any letdown in this matchup. The thing I liked about it, the way they played and the way that, Matt Rule kind of helped them to that is, good teams really are focused on, the process, on getting better every single play, not necessarily about the result. The result matters, right? But like Nebraska is going to beat Akron. I mean, 99 times out of 100, unless something crazy happens, Nebraska is going to beat Akron. But there's a big difference in beating somebody 20-10 and 68-0. And truly, the score isn't really it does matter, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. It's more about the style of play and the brand of football that you're establishing. And that's the kind of brand, last week, that's the kind of brand of football that Nebraska needs to play. And that's the standard that they need to hold themselves to if they're ever going to get back to anywhere close to where they want to be. To competing for championships and all that type of stuff. Like that's the standard that they need to hold themselves to. So hopefully they come out and play that same way this week with that same, urgency and intensity.
Yeah, that'd be great to see. And the urgency and intensity went from the starters to the backups last week, and that was great to see. They didn't really miss a beat too much on that front. So it's good to see that this team overall, not just the starters, knows how to play at that level.
So one thing that's interesting about this matchup, we don't have a line spread, which sometimes is the case with the FBS and FCS games. They still haven't put one out that I've seen. So I mean, it's going to be probably a tough spread to make after Nebraska, covered last week's 34.5-point spread. So, I would think it would be somewhere in the 40s. Nebraska's going to have to score a lot of points to make it happen. We'll get to our final predictions against the spread here. Before we get to some recruiting stuff, though, I did just want to go through, field bowl predictions that maybe we had for Saturday. I'll start my bowl prediction. I think Dylan Raiola is going to get another 300-yard game, and I think he's going to have at least 3 touchdown passes on Saturday.
Emmett Johnson will have another 100-yard rushing game to make it his 3rd in a row.
I can definitely see that happening. I'm going to say, thinking about bold predictions, I'm going to say that Dane Key gets over 100 yards. We had Ja'Cory Barney get over 100 yards receiving last week. Isaiah Hunter kind of stood out in week 1. I think this week, Dane Key obviously had the touchdown catch last week, but I think he's going to, get one of those big plays and, lead the Huskers in receiving yards this week, getting over 100.
Luke Lindenmeyer will have a touchdown for the 2nd game in a row.
I'm going to say my boy Cade Patrizak gets his first career sack with the Huskers this week.
Let's see, one more prediction. Jameer Khan gets a chance to play on Saturday because with Malcolm Hartsock being out, this is something we can also cover. He was ruled out by Coach Rule on Thursday. I think Khan will see some time. It's that's where the depth comes in. Khan was a transfer this past offseason, so I think we see Jameer Khan on Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those shoes are filled, with some different options in the secondary. My last bold prediction, I think Ja'Cory Barney will return a punt for a touchdown this week. That's pretty bold because it is a hard thing to do, but I'm just going to throw it out there and say
close last week. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And then I guess I'll do one more. Quentin Ives will have a touchdown because in the carries he's always seemed to have a nose for the end zone. So I'm going to say another touchdown for Quentin Ives.
Yeah, this is a big week, I think, again, for the backup running backs. I mean, they're still trying to, kind of establish that hierarchy. So, especially for those guys, I think this is kind of critical in terms of, where they're going to be, moving forward. Let's shift gears really quick. We'll make our final predictions against the spread, even though we don't really have a spread right now, but we'll make our final score predictions here in a minute. I did want to go over some of the guys that are going to be visiting this weekend. Not kind of a huge weekend of visitors, but there are some interesting visitors, and there's some interesting things happening on the recruiting trail. In the 2026 class, Sam Dolphins, a long snapper from Papillion, Nebraska, he's visiting. That's kind of been a recruitment that's been under the radar, but the Huskers are going to need a long snapper, so that is a name to know for fans. Dayton Raiola also visiting this weekend in 2027. Our guy Matt Erickson, who just visited, has been projected to Nebraska. He'll be back on campus. Torrey Pittman, our 5-star commitment, is going to be back on campus. A few others in the 2027 class, nobody like super notable or anything. I would say the most notable recruiting news this week is that Nebraska offered Michigan commitment Julian Walker earlier this week, I think on Wednesday, which is kind of interesting. He's a really good player. He's ranked 145th overall in the 24/7 composite rankings for 2026. He's 6'6", 252 pounds, out of Irmo, South Carolina. Now Michigan's won this commitment. They battled South Carolina. They've still been battling South Carolina for this commitment. Julian Walker just visited South Carolina last weekend. It does seem late for Nebraska to be offering Julian Walker at this point, but they obviously think they have some chance. They're going to try to. It sounds like they may try to get him on campus for the Michigan game next weekend, which would be kind of interesting. But what are your thoughts on this recruitment? Does Nebraska have any shot, do you think, of flipping Julian Walker?
You never say no in today's day and age. And I mean, if you really like the player, I mean, yes, it's late, but why the hell not? I mean, you never know. You truly never know. And maybe they can make some inroads, especially if they beat Michigan next week. So you never know. I mean, it's one of those things where you're better off taking a shot and missing than not, doing your homework at all. So we'll see. I'm not going to give a definitive yes or no because I really don't know. I think they probably are on the outside looking in, but I never count out this coaching staff when it comes to a recruitment.
Yeah, it's interesting. They definitely need, there's not a single D-line commitment in this class right now, which is very concerning. I know it's Terry Braden's first year, and I know there's a lot of disclaimers about the 2026 class, but if you're trying to build a championship program, to go an entire class without a single D-line commitment is somewhat worrisome. So they definitely have some work to do. I would say that South Carolina probably has a better chance of flipping Julian Walker than Nebraska does. But we'll see. There's just not very many targets left on the board in this class, so it's worth it's worth trying. Michigan does have a lot of commitments in their class, so maybe that Nebraska could sell something there because they've got like 3 or 4 edge commitments, and we're all very highly ranked, by the way. So there could be a chance there. It's just hard to get a kid out of the South. It's usually going to take you getting multiple visits, the spring visit, the official visit. So I don't even know if I guess he still could take official visits because they don't have that rule anymore. So we'll see. But I think this one would take maybe, if you get him on campus for this game, if you could maybe get him on campus again before, signing day. But that's a little more difficult than it used to be with signing day getting moved up. So, I like that they're swinging for the fences here, but I would put this one as a long shot. I just, a win could help for sure. But I do think going up against a lot of history of Michigan developing and getting guys drafted is also going to be a difficult thing to overcome for Nebraska. But we'll see. They definitely do need to pick up with defensive line recruiting. And it's been Terry Braden in this class, but the past few years, they have not done great, I would say, with like the edge and D-line recruiting. It's been better, but it needs to reach another level if this program is going to compete for championships.
And then also, really quickly, Ahmad Hudson was projected to go to LSU by Sam Spiegelman earlier this week. I wouldn't count Nebraska out of it. The opportunity to play basketball is a big reason for Ahmad Hudson to commit to a school. And if that's the case, then, obviously you might make room for him on this roster, but the Nebraska basketball roster is pretty set for the future, I would think. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, you'd love to land Ahmad Hudson, but I think LSU may be in the lead for now. And a lot of times, these early predictions are just to up the NIL offers of other schools. So again, not out of it by any means, but just an interesting note.
Yeah, and Ahmad Houston, the 5-star tight end, has kind of has a strong relationship with Trey Taylor. They were teammates during the Nebraska 7-on-7 event. So, pretty notable, kind of a notable thing there. Would be nice to see if they could get, into that mix there. But
Yeah,
early predictions, a long way to go before signing
yeah,
day.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Nebraska still, I think, is in a good spot with a lot of their 2027 recruits. They did make some positive headway, I think, last weekend with Albert Simeon, one of the top interior offensive lineman in the 2027 class. So that would be a big recruitment to get. That's going to be another tough one, though. He's out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Texas A&M seems to have a really strong, kind of spot in that recruitment right now. So I like where Nebraska's at in this 2027 class. But in terms of 2026, it would be nice to add a few more guys there, and another guy on the radar. Cameron Wilson is going to be taking a visit. We've talked about him a ton. 6'5", 210 out of Miami, 17 sacks last season. Really an electrifying pass rusher. He got projected to flip to Nebraska this summer. It didn't end up happening, but he is going to visit for a game this fall, so that could be a more realistic flip opportunity for Nebraska than Julian Walker, I would say.
and honestly, I think he could maybe even fill that edge spot. I get he's more of a linebacker, but the way he pass rushes and the way he tackles, he could really be a major asset to the program.
Yeah, he would be a great fit, for that edge, for that jack linebacker spot. So yeah, we'll see. And Terry Braden didn't obviously had was a bit of a disadvantage coming in like February. So,
Yeah,
it's going to be tough this class, but he's got to, he's got to step it up though. He's really, if they don't get any guys in this 2026 class in terms of, tackles and ends, pass rushers, they really got to step up their efforts in 2027 because we all know that teams that win championships, that are playing in the college football playoff, what does every single one of them have? Good defensive lines. So you really have to, and that's recruiting. I mean, I know it's easy to say, oh, let's go to the transfer portal, but how's that worked out in terms of getting defensive linemen? Not great. It's hard to find those guys. So that's one area in recruiting. I want to see them do better at running back. I want to see them do better on the defensive line. So hopefully Terry Braden can achieve that looking ahead in the 2027 class.
well, I think it's a lot easier to sell when you have a body of work to kind of point to too. So I think that's where this season will be important as well. I think once you get to the off season and even towards the end of the season, if you have something you can point to and say, hey, I helped develop Cade Petrizak. Hey, the defensive line was able to do this. Then it's a lot easier to come in and sell recruits that as well.
And the 2025 class, I mean, is looking, Cade Petrizak makes that haul look much better. I do think Tyson Terry is going to be a good player. So there are some quality pieces there. Just Nebraska just needs more of those. We need more guys like that. But Cade Petrizak is special. So let's shift ahead to our final predictions here. Nebraska against Houston Christian. Again, we don't have a spread right now in terms of one hasn't been released yet. So who knows what the final spread will be? I'm guessing it's going to be 40 some points. This is the first time that Houston Christian has ever played a Big Ten opponent. This is their second Power Four meeting ever, I believe. So looking ahead to this game, Danny, what are your thoughts? What's your final score prediction for Saturday?
I'm going to say, first I'm going to say my score prediction. Let's see. I'm going to say 45-7. And I guess my final thoughts are I'm going to be interested to see who steps up in Malcolm Hartzog's place because with Hartzog being a senior, this could be an opportunity for someone to kind of show what they're made of for next season. And that's why you have a lot of these games a lot of the time to see what you have as far as depth goes. So very interested to see who steps up in Hartzog's place. And I also hope that EJ can continue to run the ball effectively and at a high level. There's been a lot of talk this week about Dylan Raiola not getting enough national respect, and I completely agree. So let's hope he throws for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns Saturday.
Yeah, well, he didn't get enough. I didn't think national attention going into the season, which is what it is. I mean, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. It's we just need to win games, but he should be talked about a lot more. I mean, you look at those preseason quarterback rankings, and he's outperformed quite a few guys that were ranked ahead of him, including that dummy from Iowa, Mark Gronowski.
Oh, they have a quarterback? I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently, consecutive 128 yards in 2 games is elite for Iowa, which it is Iowa. So got to give them their props for their elite quarterback there. But anyway, it is going to be fun to see Dylan Raiola sling it. I'm going to go 55-6. That's my prediction for this week. I think we'll see a few field goals. I think TJ Lateef will get some time in the second half, but I think this offense is going to be rolling, man. Like I think they just want to, and I think they want to put that on film too. I think they want to show people like every time you play Nebraska, like there's a chance they score 50. So I really think these guys are going to keep rolling, and I want to see them keep rolling and just move that momentum into Michigan week. So that's my prediction, 55-6. We don't get a shutout, but we do get another dominating defensive effort from the Black Shirts against Houston Christian Saturday morning.
And so knowing our predictions, it'll probably be like 72-0. And we'll take that too. We will take that too.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because I feel like this team is starting to turn a corner with that level of dominance. Yes, I know it's Akron and blah blah blah, but I really, Saturday really showed me something, and I'm hoping this Saturday will be a continuation of that.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember a few years ago, being 10-10 against North Dakota at halftime, and North Dakota is a solid FCS team. I'm not trying to put them down or anything, but
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Georgia, I remember losing to Georgia Southern. So we've had games against these level of programs where it has been a struggle.
South Alabama gave us a tough time in the first half. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good to see a team actually go out and take care of business. And 68-0 to me is more than taking care. Like beating a team 40-0 is taking care of business. Like 68-0 was not playing a perfect game, but they definitely were striving for that. They were striving for perfection. They obviously came up short, but they played really damn well. And if they can keep meeting that standard every week, like this team's going to be where we all want them to be at the end of the year. So, I know that we just got to get through this game, and then we'll finally be on to Michigan week. And I know that's the game that a lot of us have had circled as like the just when we're going to learn like what this team can truly be. Like it was great to beat Cincinnati, but Michigan, I think, is the next big test, like beating a team like Michigan, Penn State, USC, and hopefully if the Wolverines don't stub their toe against Central Michigan, they'll be ranked coming in here next Saturday. And honestly, I feel that Nebraska should be ranked. I know that they're not going to be just based on the strength of teams that they've beaten, but you can't tell me there's 25 teams right now in the country better than Nebraska. I just don't believe that.
I hope that the Wolverines stub their toe against Central Michigan. Well, on one hand, I hope the Wolverines stub their toe, but also if they stub their toe and they lose, then they'll be pissed off. So it's a double-edged sword. I don't know. We'll see. I just hope Nebraska's ready come Michigan.
Yeah, we will see. That'll be a big game because I think if this team wants to be a playoff contender, that's a game that they need to win. So in terms of Houston Christian, they should dominate this one, and then we will look ahead to Michigan next week. So we'll be back for our Saturday morning pregame chat tomorrow. So if you want to hang out with us for an hour or so, 30 minutes, however long we decide to hang out, we'll be back for that 7 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, Saturday morning. So come join us, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.